Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, to another exciting episode of Vash Sky ParkCast. My name is Vash Sky, and I'm here to take you through, well, actually, memory lane today. It's a pseudo Vash and Vixen kind of day, because in order to set up the story about Tomorrowland and what's actually going on both coasts, by the way, I had to actually take you through a little bit of the history of Tomorrowland so that we actually know what we're looking at. It is wild what is actually going on right now, because more might be being done than the Disney company has yet to let you in on. So it's very, very interesting to go through it, and been collecting footage and all kinds of stuff all day long. It's going to be a great program, I will say. Also, too, another tomorrow-ish attraction in the form of Cosmic Rewind right there, having a little bit of problems and issues. Disneyland Railroad coming back online. It's a whole lot of good time here on the Vash Sky ParkCast, and we have so many people out there that have graciously joined us for this tremendous occasion. We have Irate Specialist out there. We've got Matt B707. Awesome stuff right there. We got Freedom Seeker. Very, very cool. I love that. Awesome stuff right there. Juliet in the chat, which, by the way, Juliet, every single time she comes with an amazing support for the channel, not just from her modding duties, to which she does a fantastic job, but also, too, with support like this. 2 British pounds sterling right at the gate right here. Evening Vash Sky ParkCast and Skyliners. Thank you so much, Juliet. Very much appreciate that. Hello there, Skyliners. It is awesome to see you out there. And Juliet, not to be outdone right there, gifted a Vash Sky ParkCast membership. Now, Robert Roy, I think it's Robert Ward. You are now a Sky Watcher, and that means that you can actually watch Vash and Vixen on Saturdays at 3 p.m. Eastern right there. We cover all kinds of stuff, all kinds of history and everything like that. It is a tremendous show. You gotta definitely check it out. You're gonna get a taste today, I think. It's gonna be really, really interesting. Thank you so much, Juliet. Very much appreciate that. And to all you Sky Watchers out there, welcome. Very, very cool. Oh, yes. Vixen Sky always loves Disney history. I like it too. Thank you so much for joining on in here. Very, very cool. Let's see. I'm looking at the chat right now, and we are looking pretty good right now. That is fantastic. Because we have a limited time schedule, I got to get right into this, because we only have an hour and a half before we got to get to the M4 Empire. So here we go. I'm going to start out by sharing my screen here. Okay, there have been some updates with Tomorrowland on both coasts, like I said. Now, that being at Disneyland in Anaheim, California, and also to the Magic Kingdom over there in Florida at Walt Disney World. Really interesting stuff. But to know our story properly, we got to go all the way back here to 1955, the original incarnation of Tomorrowland as it existed at Disneyland. In fact, didn't really go all that well. In fact, Tomorrowland was running so behind schedule when they were actually constructing the park that there were some Disneyland operations managers and so forth that were saying, maybe we just have, Frontierland, Adventureland, and Fantasyland open. That's it. We'll just leave Tomorrowland off the roster. Walt Disney was like, no, you gotta have Tomorrowland open. So it did open, and the ironic thing about Tomorrowland is that, well, it's the land they'll build tomorrow. It's kind of been its history ever since day one, because it's always been kind of this last minute thing, this leftover, this holdover. In fact, Walt Disney, when it was open and established for the initial years, he actually joked and called it Todayland, which is pretty funny. They had exhibits by aluminum companies, plumbing companies. Monsanto did have a presence in those early days. You can see TWA right there, but very little of the future, a vision of the optimistic future that Walt wanted to portray actually existed in the land itself on opening day. But that all changes in 1967. Oh yes, that's the big one, folks. That's when Walt's like, you know what, we're going to go ahead and do this properly. In fact, the planning for this started back in the mid-year of 1964. And you'll remember where Disney's efforts lie at that point. They were at the 1964-65 World's Fair. Walt knew he was going to bring back some of those creations that he built for the fair, and so it was like, well, we need a new Tomorrowland in order to showcase them properly. And so work got, started on developing this specific project right here. And to the tune of $23 million, they were able to achieve just that. In fact, Walt worked tirelessly up until the day he died on this Tomorrowland redo for Disneyland. He knew that this was going to be a part of his legacy, and I think a lot of the technologies that he wanted to eventually imbue into his Progress City, or EPCOT, his experimental prototype community of tomorrow, that's not the theme park, that is the place. I think he wanted to go ahead and take a lot of that and imbue it there. So this was definitely a showcase for that and a proof of concept for, items like the People Mover or the monorail and so forth. But $23 million, remember, the park only opened, 12 years ago? Before that point, at $17 million. So it was a big investment. In fact, I think Disneyland Square at the same year that this opened right here, or maybe it was a couple years prior, it was $15 million. Imagine that. I mean, they spent a lot of money on this. And the aesthetic was very simple, right? It was like, okay, let's go ahead and imbue this with very clean lines, right? Let's go ahead and unify the design, have this kind of showcase of these technological spaces as supported by maybe some sponsors like Bell, Monsanto, General Electric, Goodyear, and others, but we'll have this unified design that allows the sponsors to still stand out a little bit, but not all obviously overtake the arcing design concept that John Hench and I think sculptor Michu, if I'm not mistaken, was able to achieve with this. It's really cool. It was kind of like this this kind of space age future. Had some maybe Googie style architecture for the time, but very much mid-century modern contemporary. Awesome stuff, and everybody liked it. Well, it wasn't to last, unfortunately. That's what brings us to 1998 Tomorrowland. Well, in fact, before we get to that, actually, let's go ahead and get some footage up here, because 1998 Tomorrowland is intrinsically linked with the Magic Kingdom's effort to redo their Tomorrowland. So here you go. Here's some footage here that I put together. Okay, 1967 Tomorrowland. Awesome stuff. And now, when Disney is developing its Magic Kingdom concept, it's like, hey, you know what? Why reinvent the wheel? Walt worked on this portion of the park specifically, that being Disneyland's Tomorrowland. Let's go ahead and adapt a lot of those concepts and those ideas to the Walt Disney World Magic Kingdom Tomorrowland concept. So they just basically pulled out almost everything from there and put it right there into the 1971 version of Magic Kingdom's Tomorrowland. But as the years wore on, and as the company wanted to go ahead and infuse some IP in certain places, like Star Tours, for example, that opens in 1987. Space Mountain obviously has a dramatic effect on these specific locales. Space Mountain at Magic Kingdom opens in 75, at Disneyland in 77. So it's like, okay, maybe we should update this vision here. Maybe we should go away from the mid-century modern style and go towards something that's really unique and revolutionary. And so their idea was Tomorrowland 2055, and it was going to be fantastic. It was going to be like this interstellar concept where, I guess the story is that Imagineers were digging in a portion of Tomorrowland and found these crystals, which actually happened to be like a home beacon of sorts that brought interstellar travelers out from space. And then they descended on Tomorrowland, and their infused technology and all of that, that's what gave us 2055. It's a wild concept. It actually involves like an update to the electrical parade in some respects. It's kind of crazy. But obviously, when Disneyland Paris opens, that's 1992, there for those keeping track, it was like, oh, hold on. These theme park projects, yeah, we're going to have to go ahead and just back up the train here just a little bit, because this is crazy how much money is being spent on these additions right here. So Michael Eisner took the conservative approach when it came to, theme park concepts going forward. The Disney decade was no more, and now budget-friendly was in. So that's what gave us the 1994 version of Magic Kingdom's Tomorrowland and the 1998 version of Disneyland's Tomorrowland. So 94 Tomorrowland at Magic Kingdom was really interesting. It was kind of like this ray gun sci-fi type future, and it had a lot of metal, lights, colors, and all of that. It was actually kind of it was really interesting. It was really kind of revolutionary because it wasn't based on a previous form of Tomorrowland. It was kind of like, okay, well, like, let's say the 1960s became the vision of the future, and let's put some sci-fi in that, and let's go ahead and try to make that a reality. It's really kind of an interesting concept. 1998 Tomorrowland at Disneyland, that was very, very different. As you can see there, we have some holdovers from 98 Tomorrowland, like the Astro Orbiter at the front of the Tomorrowland concept right there. That's probably not good right there, but it was kind of like this residential future mixed in with what the Imagineers, that is, accomplished at the 1992 Discoveryland at Disneyland Paris. Jules Vernian type thing. It's a little weird. It never really worked out, and they didn't have the budget to really, change the architectural style of those buildings and so forth, and they certainly didn't have the budget to put the Astro Orbiter in its proper place, that being up high, but they, duplicated a lot of those assets and so forth, and it's like, okay, well, we're going to stick this somewhere. Let's go ahead and stick this at the entrance, and that's what we got. We also had the Peepa Mover, which was originally constructed in 1967 for the 1967 version of Tomorrowland. That is true. And a lot of those motors and so forth, those and the technology itself was actually first, invented for the 1964-65 World's Fair. And so you have this track going through this beautiful 1967 Tomorrowland. But for 1998, it was like, we need a thrill ride. We need an e-ticket. We need something to go ahead and get these guests in there. And that was in the form of the rocket rods. Now, I wince a little bit. You can see some track dotting through there on your screen right now. But the rocket rods didn't quite work out. it was never meant to be. And one of those big reasons being that, they didn't have the budget to bank the turns on that track. Because they didn't have the budget, and because their sponsor dropped out because of test track issues and all of that, well, now we have kind of a half-baked rocket rods attraction. It'd be like going on test track or, Radiator Springs Racers over there at Disney California Adventure and, having to slow down all of those turns because they're not banked. That's pretty much what we got when it came to the rocket rods. And, well, that didn't last very long. The tire issues that they had were crazy. Maintenance costs ballooned past all of their projections. The original, 1990s era computer systems couldn't keep up. I mean, it was an absolute mess. And so it was like, let's go ahead and take it down, because it only lasted, I think, like one season or something like that. And let's go ahead and redo it right. And then it never opened because, well, there was no money, there was no budget, and there was no gumption to tackle these projects. And so, ever since 1998, ever since 1994, we've been kind of stuck with the versions of Tomorrowland that we've had. And even those versions have kind of, started to whittle away. In what is it, for the 1994 version of Magic Kingdom's Tomorrowland, you had Stitch's Great Escape go in there and then come out and then be completely removed. And all of that. We've had multiple styles and stylings from the 1994 version be altered, modified, or taken down. For the 1998 version of Tomorrowland here at Disneyland, we've had various implementations of IP, like Buzz Lightyear, for example, go in. Those facades redone. Star Tours' facade redone, especially for the Star Tours Adventures Continue attraction that came out, I want to say 2010, 2011, 2012. Around that part right there. We've had the Orbitron that you can see up there, up on high. That used to move, by the way. Unfortunately, not anymore. So that's great. Interventions that took over the Carousel of Progress building. That was going to be as part of that 1988 Tomorrowland as well. That has been left empty for some time. For a little while, it was Launch Bay. Well, you know how that worked out. So we've just been left with these kind of diminishing Tomorrowlands ever since their big redos in the 90s. And so everybody's kind of been asking for a while, when are they actually going to redo Tomorrowland? And it's a really interesting thing that has happened. Let's go ahead and go on back right here to what is happening at Magic Kingdom. Let's see here. We've got, give me a second here, guys. There we go. Photos, paintwork underway in Tomorrowland as work on new color scheme begins. This was back in March of 2018, by the way, which is really, really interesting that some of this stuff started getting off the ground around that time. You can see right here, you still have that ray gun architecture at this point, but it's starting to be painted over a little bit in some on some walls, some surfaces, and so forth. You can see right here, Tomorrowland gets a new coat of paint at the Magic Kingdom. This is in 2019 now, so we've gone a year where they have redone areas of pavement, areas of various surfaces, walls, and so forth. I think here was at the Starcade, if I'm not mistaken, right there, or the old Starcade structure. I'm sorry, not Starcade. I do apologize. The Star Traders. What am I saying? Come on! Starcade's only at Disneyland. So you can see right here what this looks like. Now, you can see that they're going back to this kind of bright white color scheme. Not too dissimilar from the 67 original version of Tomorrowland that existed at Disneyland, and akin to the 1971 version of the Magic Kingdom's Tomorrowland. See right here, trouble with Tomorrowland, new paint photo update. We go down. Tom Bricker, all the way back then in 2019, was documenting the process of redoing various surfaces. A lot of people were very excited about the prospect of, hey, maybe, you know, they're doing like these little paint jobs and so forth in order to perhaps give us a new Tomorrowland. And maybe that was the idea. Maybe they were just setting up for Tron. That would obviously be an incoming edition. Very hard to say, but one of the biggest things that changed at Magic Kingdom's Tomorrowland to signify the big change was the removal of this entry sign right here. You can see that actually sat above the entrance as you actually walked into the land. See right here what this kind of looked like. Very emblematic of that kind of sci-fi aesthetic, that ray gun aesthetic that they were going for in 1994. But what they replaced it with was a little odd. It's not so much that kind of John Henshian kind of sculpture by Michu type aesthetic. It's trying to do that, but it doesn't really do that. It's much smaller and less grandeur than the 1994 sign right there. It doesn't light up, doesn't have any moving parts. It's just kind of there. And well, Imagineers, at least ex-Imagineers, not super excited about it. I want to go ahead and play you this clip right here. This is an interview with Paul Osterhout, a former Imagineer who was a big part of the 1994 version of New Tomorrowland and voice of Jimmy in the Carousel Progress finale. Very interesting stuff. Let's go ahead and hear what he has to say. If I can go ahead and play it. And we're going to go ahead and maximize the video. Here you go.
And so this was opening day. This is what it looked like. If you have forgotten, because it hasn't been like this for a while, this is what it looked like for opening day. And you know, the Imagineers like to come in and add things and make things better and create more interactive stuff and just create a better experience for you. So this is what? Wait a minute. Okay, all right. We'll let that lie there.
I guess we will. I guess the Imagineers who worked on 94 Tomorrowland not pleased with what they've done right here. It was a little bit odd. I'm not gonna lie. It's a little bit odd, but you can see even beyond this archway right here how those various surfaces and architectural appointments have been either removed or reworked to be consistent with this aesthetic as set up by this new sign right here. In fact, in 2019, Disneyland actually unveiled some new Tomorrowland entrance concept art. big time stuff right here. Boy, oh boy, are we getting a new Tomorrowland? Well, it looks like we actually are. You can see right there what aesthetic they're actually going for. Now, apparently they may have actually taken old concept art from 1998's Tomorrowland and like overlaid these elements on top of it, because you can see like that's the Rocket Rod's facade right there. That's the old Star Tours facade, all emblazoned in gold and bronze. A little bit weird, but I guess what they were going for, as depicted by actually Orange County Register here, Disneyland's new Tomorrowland entrance will be inspired by space age architecture of the past. So I guess they were going for a kind of retro future, going back to that original 1967 style, which, frankly, never really went out of style. And at least for Disneyland, kind of works, right? Because obviously you have so many connections to that mid-century modern aesthetic right there. So you can see right there, we're going to get this. It's going to be great. It's going to be absolutely fantastic. Awesome stuff. We're going to go from this, what you saw here in 1998, to this. And this is the initial work done for that new Tomorrowland, or at least that's what we thought. You can see right there, they actually removed those kind of French fry rocks, which was very indicative of that kind of Jules Verne style that they had established for multiple areas, not just Discoveryland, but Tokyo Disney and beyond. And we're going to go ahead and get rid of them. We're going to have nothing. And you might think, well, that's kind of a little bit weird. Indeed, maybe just a tad, but the big idea behind this was to kind of open this area up, right? One of the features of the original Tomorrowland back in 1967 was that it was so open. And even though you had these sweeping lines with the people mover in front of you, you could readily go in and out of the area. That all changed with the combination of the French fry rocks and the Astro Orbiter being in the front right there. It's no good, but they're making the best of it. And that's where this famous wall comes from. So just adjacent to the Astro Orbiter, containing actually a lot of the back-end air compressors and pump work for the nearby Astro Orbiter, sits this, right, this wall here. And that went up in 2019 and never went away. And it seemed like work on Tomorrowland had stalled completely. Now, at the same time, we did get this new space age kind of wall right there, which was consistent with that artwork that they had actually showed for this new Tomorrowland right here. So that's very, very cool. And it's very much evoking that kind of 1967 style, which was great. But that was it. That's all we saw for this. And that's been there since 2019. In fact, at Disneyland, it's still there. It was there for so long, actually, that the artwork originally printed and put up on this 2019 wall right here had eroded. It had faded so badly, they actually had to replace that artwork. But nothing's been done with this area. For all that time, we were like, what? I thought we were going into the future here with this new Tomorrowland. Afraid not. It looks like we weren't actually getting our new Tomorrowland at all. In fact, it was just illuminated recently, in fact, by the Wall Street Journal here, the 3,000-person team working in secret to create Disney Magic. Yes, the Wall Street Journal actually did a big expose on WDI and that very interesting time with Bob Chapek at the helm. And there we learned something very, very interesting. You can see right here, this is this little segment from this article right here. It was also a time of diminished ambition because senior park executives didn't trust WDI could deliver projects on time and on budget. Plans for several major Marvel attractions were killed, people familiar with the matter said. Proposals by Imagineers to refurbish Disneyland's aging Tomorrowland were also turned down, as executives calculated it wouldn't do enough to increase attendance. In fact, they're on skis there, an Imagineer with the company for 23 years, left in 2020 because, well, quote, it wasn't fun anymore. Things got worse in 2020 when most Imagineers were furloughed because there was so little work to do during the pandemic. Later that year, 411 were laid off. Not good, dark time, and a lot of the original construction timetables and the original projects that were actually, going through the pipeline right there, they just got cut, stalled, canceled. It was terrible. It was not good. But something changed, obviously, recently. In fact, a couple things did. Not only did we actually see, say goodbye to a couple of trash cans in the form of, Bob Iger and Bob Chapek. Here, I think we have a clip for that, actually. Here we go. Oh, hang on.
Turn the others into trash cans. See you later, trash cans.
See you later, trash cans, indeed. Now we got Josh D'Amaro. Sorry. Everybody else was Bob. We have Josh D'Amaro at the helm, taken from the chairman position of the Disney parks and elevated up to the CEO of the Walt Disney Company. Now, it's interesting because somebody who would actually know the history of Tomorrowland is actually Josh D'Amaro. How do I know that? Well, it's really interesting to see it here. Let me see if I can actually get this from my notes here. There we go. What is that? That's a young Josh D'Amaro right there, actually, in Tomorrowland around the time of 1998. Huh. So he has seen firsthand the effects of, Tomorrowland didn't quite live up to the vision. Now, I've tried to find the raw of this photo. I can't quite seem to do that. This was actually a screenshot taken from an interview that he did before he was actually CEO. But as you can see right here, it does feature a lot of the elements of that 1998 version of Tomorrowland. In fact, he's actually on a kind of water play area that was deactivated not shortly after the opening of 1998 Tomorrowland, which was very, very sad. So he's actually standing on the failure of Imagineering at the time. And there were some Imagineers that I quite liked that actually worked on the project, like Tony Baxter, for example, and Tim Delaney and all of that. But they just couldn't actually get it done. They just didn't have the support and all of that. But Josh D'Amaro, he knows actually what's at stake right here. He understands intimately how these projects can go astray, and maybe is interested in righting the wrongs of his predecessors. That would be interesting. In fact, this is quite something, actually. When we've been covering this Tropical America thing over there at Walt Disney World's Animal Kingdom, one of the quotes coming out of that project, actually told by an Imagineer, was Josh D'Amaro came out and said that the paintings themselves can't look like they are just repainted, right? They have to look more substantial in terms of the changes that they want to bring to the area and make it so that this previous Dinoland area actually evokes the Tropical Americas that they're going for. Well, fair enough. But it's interesting that Josh D'Amaro actually said that at all. And somebody who actually knows about repainting buildings and not actually doing much with them, well, it kind of makes sense that he would know that kind of thing because he saw it firsthand with 1988 Tomorrowland at Disneyland. We have photographic evidence right there. Very, very interesting indeed. I don't know what Tweedledum and Tweedledee are doing there, actually. I gotta figure that out. But, so Levy, there you go. Now, there might be hope for a new version of Tomorrowland in 2026. That brings us to this right here. How Walt Disney World quietly reimagined Tomorrowland and what's next. This is Blog Mickey here, June 6, 2026, because there have been a lot of changes in the area. See right here from Theme Park Cheetah that the structures that made up like the 1994 version of Tomorrowland at Magic Kingdom have actually been either altered or outright removed, which is really, really interesting. You can see right here what this kind of looks like. There was the structure and how it looked, and you can see that kind of classic ray gun style, now completely removed. This is very, very recently. This was in the last couple of weeks right here. You can see right here, June 5th, 2026, Tomorrowland F94 towers demolished at Magic Kingdom. And then you can actually see the effects of those towers in the process of being demoed and finally being demoed entirely. So what's actually going on here? See, this is where it gets really, really weird, because it's like they haven't announced new Tomorrowland, and yet we've seen kind of the effects of that. We've seen a lot of that ray gun architecture taken away. We've seen a lot of the 1967, 1971 stuff actually restored. Well, check this out. This just happened yesterday. There you go. Scrims come down from around Astro Blasters at Disneyland. Yes, the version of Space Ranger Spin over at Disneyland, Buzz Lightyear Astro Blasters. See right there, it's been completely modified. A lot of that gray and blue tones that used to exist on this have been removed, and in place you have this kind of white aesthetic. Let me see actually if I can get some before photos for you, because it's really, really interesting. Here we go. Hang on, guys. I thought I had this in my notes, but I guess I do not. All right. Now, MJ, I do believe we have some people who have been very generous with their patronage towards the channel. Please go ahead. Highlight them.
Oh, yes. We have O2RR coming in with $4.99. And he said, our friend Ron live streamed at Magic Kingdom today and got footage at Carousel of Progress for preservation. He also showed his infamous hideout. The infamous hideout, I think he hides out over at Gaston's, no? I think we all remember he hides.
That's
your secret, Ron.
I see. It's
or the Tangled Bathrooms. I can't remember which one it was. It was one of those.
We know the lore behind Ron and Gaston and the connection right there. Sometimes, some people are a little cagey with that. Okay. I just wanted to go ahead and make sure right there.
Thank you so much, O2. Yeah.
But if anybody doesn't know, it's because that joke stems from the fact that Ron used to be Gaston. All right,
yes.
Here you go.
That's
what
it,
I was
Vash.
looking for right there. Thank you so much, MJ. Very much appreciate you. Now, if we come over here, you can see what that looks like, both before and an after. Okay. Before, after. Screw that up, but you get what I'm saying right there. Now, this one's Shroud and Shadow. I believe Five Fires has a little bit more of a look that might be more representative of that before photo. So here you go. That's after. That's before. You can see that they've stripped a lot of the color from the exterior, like the grays, the greens, the reds, the purples, and so forth. And some of that was to go along with Buzz Lightyear, his costume, right? His iconic color scheme. But also, too, in like the mid-2000 teens, I guess. Maybe like the 2012s, 2011 region, if I remember correctly. Sorry. They went with this kind of grayish, bluish tone for all of Tomorrowland, which was pretty interesting. It didn't look bad. It was certainly better than the bronze that we had with the 1998 version of Tomorrowland, but it wasn't quite that 67 flavor. And now they've really, really kind of leaned into that. As you can see right here from Walt Disney World News Today, 1976-ish Tomorrowland colors return to Disneyland on Buzz Lightyear Astro Blaster's facade. You can see kind of what that looks like right here with their photos. It's a little strange here how we're getting that now of all times. And again, they haven't said anything about this, a new version of Tomorrowland coming to either Walt Disney World or Magic Kingdom. And yet we're seeing evidence of it actively. And here's the other thing too. I want to go ahead and play this video by Gecko Guy here. It was given a new lighting package as well. So there was some infrastructure actually installed for this new version of the Astro Blaster's facade right here. And it didn't have any correspondence with Buzz Lightyear itself, but mainly it has some connective tissue to the 1967 version of Tomorrowland. Very, very interesting. Very, very bizarre. They would actually do that. Now, here's the other thing that's actually going on at around this same time. Remember that Autopia, big redo, refurb that they're going to do in order to change out these gas-powered engines with electric versions of these cars? Oh, yes. That is going on currently right now as one of these big Tomorrowland projects, at least at Disneyland. In fact, apparently, according to documents, according to this Sammy Routh right here, he is suggesting that Disneyland has to actually close down its current version of Autopia no later than February 1st, 2027. This thing is coming in quick, guys. It's coming in fast. On the other side of Disneyland's Tomorrowland, we also had this. The Tomorrowland Theater that used to house Captain EO back in the day as the Magic Eye Theater, and the Honey, I Shrunk the Audience back when the 1998 version of Tomorrowland actually opened. That theater that's been dormant for, years and years and years, has now randomly reopened and is showing Pixar shorts. Now, that's not the most incredible update ever, but it took a little bit of time and effort in order to do that, I'm sure. In fact, I remember when they had to actually restore the Hyperion Theater for the opening of Steve Rogers the Musical. That was, 3 years after Frozen had, been closed entirely. I think it was 2023 was when Steve Rogers the Musical actually opened. And in order to get that theater ready, they had like a rat infestation. They had to actually reupholster a lot of the chairs, a lot of the carpet, all of that. It took quite a bit of money in order to get that thing open and operational. Now, I'm not saying that Tomorrowland Theater had atrophied to that same extent, but it was closed longer. And yet now it is open. Again, very strange, very unusual, and something that they, Disney themselves didn't actually tout as opening soon or anything. It just opened magically one day. And then on the other coast there, we have this. A great, big, beautiful tomorrow. The ever-changing Carousel of Progress. Yes, Carousel of Progress is closing later this year in order to be updated in one of the biggest updates that this show has ever experienced, going all the way back to 1964's version at the New York World's Fair. All of this stuff is happening all at the same time. All I can surmise from all of this is that, like I was showing before, that photo of Josh Duhamel right there, he knows what a new Tomorrowland would actually signify. And now he's got Bruce Vaughn, who's very technologically minded in his thinking. What if, go with me on this, folks. What if Josh Duhamel wanted to go ahead and show the fans, hey, look, listen, we're listening. We're righting the wrongs of predecessors past. We're going to be delivering the experience that, I don't know, we've always wanted to deliver to you, or whatever corporate speak that he actually has, as kind of this make good with the fans, especially, with destroying Splash Mountain, with destroying Rivers of America, all of that. We're going to give you a new Tomorrowland on both coasts. And Bruce Vaughn, who wants to go ahead and show off his technological wizardry when it comes to, BDX droids and, interactive walking characters, robotic characters, new, audio-metronic puppeteering techniques, whatever. Maybe they use Tomorrowland to actually do that. It's an interesting idea. Let's see if I can go ahead and put on some B-roll for you guys. Tomorrowland certainly needs an update. There's no question about it. I think at both parks, whether it be Magic Kingdom or Disneyland, it might be the weakest of the lands currently available. Now, Frontierland's a little different. Obviously, with Rivers of America, that really hurts it. But we know that maybe, possibly, hopefully, good things are coming in the form of Cars Land and Villains Land. We'll see. But Tomorrowland, no matter what actually happens with those projects, on both coasts, it's going to need some kind of update. It's going to need some kind of reinvention in order to get people over there, spread out crowds, all of that. Maybe they're in the process of doing that right now. And sure, it's not like some great big overhaul in which the whole, land is taken down and you can't actually go on your favorite attractions like Space Mountain or Tron for a while. Maybe it's just going to be piecemeal. Maybe it's just we're going to work on this facade, this facade, this facade. And from a budgetary standpoint, Burbank may have provided a tranche of funding for both parks simultaneously. And historically, that's kind of how these projects get done. If it's just one park, it's a lot harder to make that case. But if it's two parks, and we can share assets and all of that, well, then your money necessarily goes further. It's a lot easier to get that funding approved. It might be happening, guys. I don't know. I mean, it's really weird how Buzz Lightyear would open up all of a sudden with this very white paint scheme, very indicative of that 1967 aesthetic. It's really weird how, after all of these years of that ray gun style, going back to the 1994 version of Magic Kingdom's Tomorrowland, they would actually get rid of some of those, ray gun appointments at the entrance right there. It's really interesting. Jonathan actually says here, very poignant commentary. I want to go ahead and bring that up right now. Will we get the entry waterfalls back? The entry waterfall is very interesting. That actually takes back to the 1971 version of the Magic Kingdom Tomorrowland. Something that I believe Tokyo has actually maintained throughout its entire lifespan, if I'm not mistaken. Going back to what? That park's opening back in 1984, if I'm not mistaken there? They've just maintained it the entire time. Okay, maybe it's 1986, actually. Now I'm thinking about it. They've just maintained that, and for a while, they actually maintained that kind of 1967 quasi 1971 aesthetic as well throughout the entirety of the land. But here's what's interesting about Tokyo. And I know this is kind of a long way to answer your question, Jonathan. Let me go ahead and I'll get there. You can see right here. This is the concept art for Tokyo Disneyland's Space Mountain Earthrise, I believe is what's going to be called. You can see it's a very different version of Tomorrowland. It's certainly got some of that 1967-71 flavor. There's no question about that. But it's far more colorful with its inclusion of nature, the flower beds, the gardens, all of that. And at least at night, I mean, it really is, showcasing that color and all of that. But it's really, really interesting. Maybe this next version of Tomorrowland that we see incorporates perhaps elements of 67 and 71. And maybe that means for Magic Kingdom, they bring back those waterfalls that I think are still in place at Tokyo, if I'm not mistaken. It's an interesting idea. It would take a lot to restore those waterfalls, but Imagineering can do anything as long as it sets its mind to it. As long as there's budget to be approved, I wouldn't see why you couldn't actually restore that original vision, that being with those beautiful waterfalls that used to cascade out in front there. If Tokyo has maintained it, and Walt Disney World just needs funding to bring it back, why not? It's unlikely, but it's possible.
So you're telling me there's a chance?
Yeah!
No.
It's perfectly placed, MJ. Thank you so much for that. It's awesome. I could have done that better myself right there. It's a long shot, but it is possible. In fact, Tokyo's version of Tomorrowland actually is getting a little bit of a rebirth of its own. They're getting the Wreck-It Ralph attraction there shortly, and obviously Space Mountain Earthrise. So it's going to be a fantastic addition, I'm sure. It's going to be really interesting to see that because apparently that might actually feature the same technology actually from Intamin that we see on Fast and Furious Hollywood Drift, which we might be getting to as well as long as we have time. But it's really interesting what's going on here. I gotta think a new Tomorrowland, is in the works. We might actually hear more about that at the D23 Ultimate Fan Event, that being in I think August of this year. I think I was just talking to Drew the Disney Dude on X at last night's theme park, and right there, and he said maybe 65 days away, so 64, according to maybe his rough math right there. So we might actually hear something at that expo along these lines. Now, I imagine it's going to be a lot of updates for the projects that they had announced back in 2024, but if they wanted to bring something new out, this could actually be it. And no matter if they say anything or not, we're still getting a newish Tomorrowland, because those ray gun structures have been destroyed. Those the paint scheme on Buzz Lightyear's facade has changed, and at least at Disneyland, we're getting a new Autopia. At Walt Disney World, we're getting new Carousel of Progress. We'll see. We'll see what actually takes place. We'll see what actually happens. I just wanted to go ahead and bring that information to you because I thought it was really, really important. It's kind of a weird time right now because Disneyland Disney themselves hasn't really said anything about any of these updates or anything like that. They haven't broken out the concept art. They haven't actually announced formally that we're getting new Tomorrowlands on both coasts. But it kind of feels like we are. However, in order to put all that together, we had to go through the long list right there. So hopefully it was actually worth it. I do apologize. I try not to be scattered right there. I try to go through that linearly, and hopefully you guys got as much out of it as I did when putting that together. Really interesting stuff. Look at that. Look at that concept artwork. of a Space Mountain back in the day with those speed ramps up top. So good. Man, Disney does not do speed ramps anymore. What is going on with that? Ugh. Well, an attraction, ironically, that should have had speed ramps or maybe escalators was Cosmic Rewind. And boy, oh boy, is it having issues. However, before we get into that, let's go ahead and get to your comments out there. I love hearing from you. MJ, come on in here. And if you could, please highlight the fine people out there that have been waiting.
We have a really good comment from Irate Specialist. I thought this was rather interesting because there's some other comments behind it. And I guess the audience seems to be on the same page on this one. But he said, very postmodern, a lot of architecture has been leaning towards it. It shows that the Imagineers care more about the modernity than they do about the guest experience, which isn't a surprise, to be honest. And I agree with that. Mm-hmm.
I do agree with that. The modernity, right, of some of their decisions right there, a little bit short-sighted, especially with that, I think, 1998 version of Disneyland's Tomorrowland. Like, I understand you were going for more of a fantasy aesthetic. I know you wanted to go ahead and incorporate those, some of those beautiful ideas from that Jules Vernian take on Discoveryland out there in Paris, but it just didn't work out. And it's one of those things where if you can't do it right, it might be best not doing it at all. I think that was a hard lesson that a lot of those Imagineers had to learn at that point. And unfortunately, we've been living with that lesson ever since.
Yeah, and we have Go and Shogi. The Tokyo artwork would stick out like a sore thumb in Disneyland. It looks cool, but doesn't have the charm that you see in the other lands in Anaheim.
Right.
Oh,
So,
D-Land. Okay. Yeah. Go ahead, Vash.
Go ahead, please. Please enter.
No, I just wanted to make sure I said that properly because he was saying D Land. So I'm assuming Disneyland. Yeah. Okay.
Disneyland. Yep. Absolutely. No, to your point, you're exactly right. So that kind of Cinnamoroll style for Space Mountain Earthrise, I don't know if that's necessarily going to fit any of what's actually in Disneyland or Magic Kingdom currently. But I was just talking about like more of the inclusion of 67 elements and how it kind of incorporates like really big flower gardens, nature, all of that, which actually is part of the 67 thought process from John Hench. It's really interesting when you look at some of those classic photos. You see these really big flower beds, something that we've been kind of missing from Disneyland. In fact, they don't even have the hanging flower baskets anymore. It's kind of a pandemic era thing that was just kind of taken them away or removed. I don't know if that's due to horticultural reasons or what, but really sad. Anyway, if we can get a little bit more life imbued into some of these parks via some flower beds, nature, trees, all of that might actually be pretty good.
Absolutely. And there's more commentary following Go and Shogi's. We have Jonathan, I believe that's Jonathan L9663. Some mosaics and other types of art, wall art would be cool. And some other comments that are following behind that one as well. So you're absolutely right. Sounds like everyone would like to see something more creative than just bland colors, including the Walmart building that we have now in Hollywood Studios. And
yes, indeed. It's interesting. I you're gonna like this, MJ. I was reading because I was doing some. I have a library of Disney books right there, and I obviously have John Hench's book. Took that out and just kind of was sticking to the pages to see if I can find any of his commentary on the 1967 version of Tomorrowland as he originally constructed it and installed it. And it was really interesting. I was reading his thoughts on color, and he was saying that, look, if you want to go ahead and have a foreboding attraction, right? If you want to go ahead and have a scary attraction or something that's a little bit more thrilling, then you use very dark colors, dark grays, and all of that. And I was just like, it's funny, because that was one of my main problems with that color aesthetic choice for Muppets, in that it's just too dark for that kind of an attraction. Now, obviously, it's very thrilling, there's no question about that, but not quite thrilling in terms of scary, thrilling in terms of fun. So why would you go with this very dark paint scheme? If going back to John Hench, which, by the way, was the color master, if he's saying that that's not what you do, well maybe it's not what you do.
The question is, how much would it cost for you to ship a copy of that over to WDI so that they can read it?
we might be able to get a discount rate on that. If it assists in these projects, well, by all means. And hey, they might be having to repaint it anyway because, well, it's coming off because they didn't actually primer it underneath.
Right.
Amazing. So, yeah, we'll get that book over to him post-haste.
Absolutely. A little humor there, guys. I'm heading back, and I'm going to let Vash have at it with the second segment here.
Well, I do appreciate it. Thank you so much. Yeah, well, the first one was huge, so you're right in saying second or third because it kind of feels like that. But no, it's just really the second topic. Indeed. We'll go ahead and get to that right now. Let me see if I can actually... I gotta do some stuff here in order to make sure that I am ready for y'all. Here we go. And let's see here. We're going to go ahead and turn that off. And getting this ready. Here we go. Okay, so Cosmic Rewind, guys. Yes, it's that famous attraction over there at EPCOT. Ugh, my goodness gracious. You know, I'm conflicted when it comes to that ride, right? Because on the one hand, it's one of the best coasters in Florida. I love going on that coaster. It is awesome. It is fantastic. But the, other intangibles around it, right? Like the building, for instance, how high it is, how much of an eyesore it is, the actual placement of it in EPCOT, all those things I don't much care for. So it's kind of a mixed bag for me, which is really unfortunate. This, though, when you reuse a building, there are consequences. EPCOT testing changes to Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind pre-show experience. This actually goes back to September of 2025. You see, when you have this pre-show experience that you're actually seeing on screen right now, okay, the problem with this room right here is that it's very large, and it holds a lot of people, obviously, that's why it's so big, but remember, it's taking up a space that previously had huge ride vehicles actually going through it, right? You remember those kind of moving theater ride vehicles? We saw those at Universe of Energy and at the, what is it? Oh, the Great Movie Ride. Okay, sorry about that. At Disney's Hollywood Studios, or Disney MGM at the time. Well, it's like, okay, let's go ahead and maintain that scale and maintain that capacity. Which, in theory, awesome. Problem is that what do people do when they get into this pre-show? They go inside, they go in the center, you have that magical effect that actually pops off, and then everybody just goes right to the right. Because everybody knows that the pre-show is not that great, not that engaging, not that fun, and they just want to actually get on the coaster. You can see this actually right here. I want to go ahead and get the name of this uploader, Waltz on Main. You can see these are very cavernous, big areas, and they just don't lend themselves to the kind of people moving that I think operations would like to have. And there's a number of pre-shows here. I'm going to go ahead and skip to the point at which we're talking about mostly. These spaces far too big, but it really is a problem here. You can see how many people are actually in this cavernous chamber right here. And this is obviously the teleporting chamber. There's a great effect, actually. It's fantastic in that you walk into a room, the lights dim, and then a couple seconds later, the lights come on, and now you're in a completely different space. Really, really cool effect right there. And it's awesome that Imagineers were able to achieve that. There's no question. But the problem here, and you can see, when you're now actually teleported to this room, everybody, you can see it in this video right here. They're all going to the right. And it's actually, I think from an operational standpoint, it's creating kind of this dangerous situation that they want to go ahead and overcome. So there have been multiple attempts to actually solve it. And this why we're actually going back to 2025 in these attempts right here. See, EPCOT testing rule changes to Cosmic Rewind. You can see that they, started bifurcating this room a little bit right here. There were new policies actually implemented. You can see this is May of 2026. They now have these stanchions right here to try to keep people from bum rushing this area and ensuring that there's some order maintained. Remember, this is kind of a self-merging line here, so it gets a little bit bad You can see Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind queue and pre-show shenanigans status report. So there have been multiple incarnations of trying to alleviate this issue here. And some of this stems back to this idea of this pre-show not being very engaging. In fact, let me go ahead and refresh this a little bit right here. You can see this headline. Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind attraction will feature audio animatronics on the ride. This is going back December of 2021. Yes, it was supposed to have audio animatronics, but it eventually did not. I mean, famously, if you go on that ride now, you won't see a single audio animatronic in place. There were going to be a few audio animatronics, one, a lot of them in the pre-show, but there was actually going to be one big one in the ride, that being the kind of, what do they call that? They have a term for it in the MCU. The big guy, the big enemy in that. Can't remember his name, but you know what I'm talking about right there. They're going to have a big, large audio animatronic in the center there, and you're going to meet, actually, at least Groot and Rocket. Initially, this was what it was supposed to look like back when this ride was actually being developed. This is public concept art that they released, and a lot of people thought, hey, you know what? This is great. This is fantastic. We're going to get that. And we never did. And so you have a combination of factors in which you have these very large spaces and an unengaging pre-show. Now, I will say, would these issues be eliminated entirely if they did do audio animatronics? I think it would help, but it wouldn't necessarily remedy the problem, because guests are going to do what they do. They want to get on their attractions as fast as possible. They're going to go to these places in which you have the coaster house, the load unload area. They want to get to that as quickly as possible. And so that's kind of what we're seeing right here. It's not great. Now, yesterday, I do believe, from Coaster K24, which, by the way, you got to check this guy out. If you're not following him already, come on, what are you doing right there? Here you go, from June 10th, 2026. Yes, I just want to get that date correct. It was yesterday. He posted this. There you go. Finally got to see the new Cosmic Rewind pre-show procedures live. This is sad how this has become necessary. Guess you got a 50-50 shot. We've now gone to this place in which we have holding areas and pens for this. And now we have a cast member leading you to the load-unload area. This is bad design, folks. That's what it is. Now, look, guests aren't completely alleviated in this, right? But guests are going to do what they're going to do. Imagineering Disney themselves have been studying guest travel patterns and movement patterns for, almost an entire century, actually, when you really think about it, but at least 70 years. So why on earth would you actually design something in which you have these issues that can only be alleviated with a cast member? Come on, guys. I mean, stuff ain't rocket science here. And yet this is what we're experiencing. If they would have just, you look at queues previous to this one, right? When you want to move large amounts of people, you want to have them go through a pre-show type experience. How do you do that effectively? Well, look at the Haunted Mansion. You have not one, but two stretching rooms, right? Now, at Disneyland, those are actually elevators to take you down beneath the train station and get you on the ride. At Magic Kingdom, they duplicated that effect. The ceiling just rises. You don't actually lower down. But at least in that way, you are contained in this kind of small group. And a lot of times you don't actually know where the door is going to open from. So those two things combined provide you this ability of people enjoying the pre-show, not bum rushing the door, not trying to get down to the load-unload area. Similarly, you have Twilight Zone Tower of Terror over there at the Disney's Hollywood Studios attraction, and also to the Guardians of the Galaxy Mission Breakout attraction at Disney California Adventure. In that, you have this kind of TV room, right? And there's two of them. You enter, and you can imagine the confines of how large that space is. It's about maybe a quarter of the space actually featured here for Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind, this kind of pre-show space here. It's much smaller than what we actually see here. That's for a reason, because they don't want a bunch of people bum rushing through. And guess what? It's worked for 30 years? Come on, guys. I mean, Haunted Mansion, that's going back to 1969. This is what happens when you lose institutional memory. It's very, very unfortunate. It's very true. Now, Disney California Adventures version of the Guardians of the Galaxy ride is really, really cool because you have Rocket Raccoon up there. He's actually up in the pre-show, actually, providing you, the story of the attraction. And it's pretty engaging stuff. And it's a very impressive animatronics figure that everybody can see. One of the problems that people are having with the Muppets pre-show, actually, recently that just opened, is that if you're not in the first 2 rows of people nearest the glass, you don't actually get to see a lot of the action that takes place there. That's not good. We have to be more thoughtful in our designs if we're designing theme park attractions right there. And unfortunately, well, this is the cost of bad design. Very sad. Yeah, Paul the Bradley's fun right there. It's really interesting. Scooter being down, yeah. Disney just showcased the technology behind Scooter, and it was really, really impressive. This kind of the motion control operation right there, which, is impressive, not gonna lie. But it is kind of like one of those things where it's like, they had that technology back in the 1960s. Okay. It's just one of those things. However, Guardians of the Galaxy's problems aren't limited to just these kind of pre-show, guest behavioral patterns here. In fact, it was actually a couple weeks ago, this was May 11, 2026, when somebody actually broke one of the glass panels there at Cosmic Rewind. You can see right there. It's actually, that glass is shattered if you look at it. Now, if I'm not mistaken, usually this is like a tempered glass, I do believe. Usually, it should be at least. If it's not, that would be very, very surprised. But you can see it's shattered, and it's like, okay, well, we can't really do anything with it, so what is the maintenance technician doing? They're covering it with tape, I guess. Look, you just try to get to the day, and, maybe after, like a week or two, you get a new glass panel actually installed, and we're good to go. Not so much here, though. A month later, it's still in that state. Yeah. With that tape there. Not so good. Not so great. And it's just, when you're imagineering a ride like this, you got to know what kind of issues might be, might be had as a result of your design. And unfortunately, we're learning in real time what the consequences of some of that are, are taking hold there. And it's just, I would have liked to have seen a little bit more planning when it came to this. Cosmic Rewind, it's so frustrating too. It's a fantastic ride. Awesome coaster. I love going on it. But man, the pre-shows, the lines, and so forth. And you'll remember too, guys, virtual queue was on this attraction way longer than it should have been. Why? Because they didn't have enough internal space to hold the amount of queue that was demanded of this attraction when it initially opened. Not so good. Don't like that. MJ, come on! And do we have any great commentators out there?
Well, not only great commentators, but Juliet coming in again with the British, 2 British pound sterling. Like, subscribe, and share. And is that the McVash burger on there? Wow.
Ooh.
Thank you so much, Juliet, for that.
Got the McVash burger actually included. That's super cool.
We're gonna have to call
for those
Apple
of you,
incorporate
for those of you
that
who may
in
not
logo.
seen, I'd recommend actually going back to yesterday's show. Right at the end right there, going Shogi actually comes on for the first time ever on camera and actually walks us through the amazing McVash meal that he himself constructed. It is absolutely fantastic. Look, if you're not a fan of me, I'm telling you what, man, you're going to be a fan of this burger, no matter what. I guarantee that. It's pretty cool. And MJ, you had a lot to do with that, so thank you so much for that.
Oh, it's our pleasure. We like to have fun around here. Let's see. I'm trying to. Oh, yes, the Real Ventures. I found it. Monsters
Yes.
Unchained is similar with the pre-show, but most stay and watch the show instead of rushing to the doors. Unlike Guardians. Wow, that is so valid.
Yeah. It's
People actually exempt the single rider line when they can do it, because this ride is always a walk on anyway, but they don't want to miss that pre-show.
Oh, miss a pre-show. Wow, that's a good point right there. Yeah, if you have a very compelling pre-show that people are enthralled with, you can overcome a lot of those issues. I just don't know if Imagineering was up to the task in providing a pre-show that everybody was like, whoa, it was awesome to actually see. Not the same way that Universal Creative actually did with Monsters Unchained. So it is sad. Disney used to be so on point when it came to this stuff, and to see these things deteriorate, at least during that time when Cosmic Rewind actually was being developed and opened, it's not good. Also, too, escalators after the ride, I think would have been fantastic as well. Remember, MJ, we heard a lot of reports when Cosmic Rewind initially opened of people like, the collapsing on the stairs as they exited the ride because of the G-forces applied on the ride. Do you remember that?
A little bit, yeah. That's been a while. I can't believe it.
Yeah.
It still feels it feels like it just opened the other day, but it's been open for quite some time now, and it's
right.
still very popular. I always check the wait times. It's up there, so it's a great attraction. They got to fix the pre-show for sure. It's very forgettable. I'm like trying to remember.
Oh man, it's not good.
No, when you can forget it that quickly, that says a lot.
By the second time, I'm like, get me through this thing. So, that's not the best feeling to have. I will say, and look, I know a lot of people love Twilight Zone Tower of Terror. I love it too. There's no question about that. But that pre-show video right there, I have seen that one too many times. And I'm kind of at the point where it's like, get me through this. But I will say, Guardians of the Galaxy Mission Breakout, that pre-show right there that replaced Tower of Terror with that audio-animatronic rocket, like, I never get tired of seeing that. So I think that it does go to show that if you have something compelling and engaging, it doesn't really feel like a wait.
That's awesome. And it's like like you were saying before with the Haunted Mansion, there is no Haunted Mansion ride without the pre-show. So it's like they know what to do. Let's just see if they have the brains to rewire this thing.
We will see. We will see. You can go ahead and stay on there, MJ. I want to go ahead and go over the story real fast. We are coming up on time here very rapidly. We gotta get to some amazing stories. This one right here, I've been saving for a while here. Oh, I'm going to do that. I'm going to do this. Disneyland has filed a permit to rebuild the New Orleans station break room, which was burned in 2022 and then demolished in 2025. The permit was filed in November 2025 as confidential and has now been issued. So this permit entry, DLR, Disneyland Resort, New Orleans Square / train station, new 357 square foot break room, building with restroom, mechanical, electrical, and plumbing right there. So this is by Theme Park IQ, who has all of the permits. I mean, Theme Park IQ, Theme Park Wizard, those two combined, you pretty much know what's coming down the pike right there. They're really, really on it. But it's really, really interesting. So this break room right here, very, very important for the operations, actually, of the Disneyland Resort, Disneyland Railroad. In fact, MJ, when this fire actually broke out, I'll go ahead and go to the archives right here. Disneyland to rebuild New Orleans Square station damaged by fire. This was back in 2022. The issue here, and you can kind of see it in these photos. Let me see, like right there, right? That's that kind of that structure that was burned inexplicably in a fire in 2022. When that happened, that housed a lot of the radio equipment that was used to keep the trains separated. So every single attraction at Disneyland. Obviously, if you have multiple trains or cars or vehicles on a track, right, you have to keep them separated so that they don't, bump into each other. And there are various methodologies in order to do that. For the railroad, it was, okay, well, you had these sensors there on the track that would say, okay, this portion of the track is occupied, so you can't go beyond this position, and that means that the train behind you can't move until you do, that kind of thing. Well, that infrastructure existed in that building. And so when that burned,
facade. Very nice facade. No, I said that's a very, very cute little facade. Yeah,
absolutely. And actually, those facades. Let me see if the Orange County Register article actually features this, because it's very, very interesting. Those New Orleans Square train station depot was based on a movie set built for the 1948 Disney musical So Dear to My Heart that combined live action and animation. So actually, that facade right there, that is very, very cute. Those were rebuilt, actually, and modeled after that movie. Now, the original sets, this is interesting, were given to Ward Kimball. And Walt, because Ward Kimball had his own train station, or train set, I should say. He had his own, I think it was the Grizzly Flats Railroad, if I recall. And that was a, big time backyard railroad. Mm-hmm. Well, when Walt was building Disneyland, he's like, hey, can I get those sets back? And he's like, wait a minute, why would you do that? And literally the quote is, that's Indian giving. Which is like, not so PC today. But that was Ward. Right. Anyway, it was like, okay, let's go ahead and rebuild them just the way that they were built originally for that film. And so that's what they're modeled after. And actually, you can see those buildings in the it's in Lincoln for sure. Great Moments, Mr. Lincoln, as it plays at Disneyland. But I believe MJ, you're gonna have to remind me there. the American Pavilion, that presentation right there. What's it called again?
Oh, the Hall of President. In Epcot.
The American Adventure.
Yeah, the American Adventure. And I'm over here thinking about Ladies of the ones that sing. Sorry, there's so much stuff.
So yeah, there's so much stuff right there. Sorry, just my mind went blank there. But two brothers on their way. That song that plays in American Adventure and in Great Moments, Mr. Lincoln. So there's a shot of actors in front of that specific railroad station.
Wow.
Right there. There was a film crew that came out there, filmed that whole scene, and those are the still images that you actually see in that presentation. So there's a lot of history with this building right here. And obviously it's very important to the operations of the Disneyland Resort Railroad. Anyway, it took 6 years. 6 years.
It's been a long day, Vash.
To get back to... Sorry, yeah.
We got you. No worries.
It took 6 years, MJ, to get back to 4 train operations for the Disneyland Railroad. Disneyland Railroad, for 40 years, has been built to accommodate at least 4 trains on the track at once. One for each station, right? And when obviously the pandemic happened, the whole park was shut down for 412 days. And when they reopened, they couldn't get everything back open and operational, initially, right? They had to staff up and they had to, restore a lot of stuff. And so it took a while to get like 2 train ops, for example, but they eventually did. And then at the time that they were thinking of getting 3 and 4 train ops finally going, this break room fire happens, and that fire destroys a lot of the infrastructure to keep those trains separated right there. So December of last year, they finally got 4 train ops, and now we are finally getting the a rebuilt train station break room right there. This is a big time thing. I know there was a lot of that was a lot of history right there. Sorry, guys. But I thought it was really important because, MJ, back me up here. The railroad, whether it be at Magic Kingdom or Disneyland, it is so quintessential to the Disney park experience, right?
Absolutely. It's like you haven't done a day unless you went on the train. It's like a must. And you know how I feel about trains.
No.
It's a tradition. We either go like smack in the beginning when we get into the park, or right before we leave. We just have to get on the beautiful
You gotta
train.
do it,
It's
right?
such because it's such a dear thing to Walt. I mean, for heaven's sake, he had one of these in his backyard. He played with his trains all the time. If you go to
Oh, yes.
the Wilderness Lodge over here at the resort in Orlando, Florida, there's tons of memorabilia all about Walt and his trains, and talking about all those things. It's a huge part of the history of Walt himself. So without the trains, it's not his park. So that's
Well,
why this is such a big deal.
I agree with that. I mean, a lot of people believe that Disneyland really only exists as Walt Disney's own train set. Right?
100%. Yeah.
That's kind of what it is, and that's kind of what it feels like. Obviously, he wanted a diminutive scale for Disneyland, and so much of that was designed around the train and how large the train actually was in relation to the castle and to Main Street and everything like that. It all kind of originates from the train. The berm obviously creates that that enclosed space right there where anything is possible on the inside, and obviously the outside is removed from view. It's so important, the railroad. And when it was down for the construction of Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, it was kind of surreal being in there for in that park for so long with the train actually operating. It just didn't feel like Disneyland. And I just said to myself after a while, I was like, I'm not coming back here unless the railroad is actually back up and operational. And it's beautiful now. It's absolutely fantastic. It's awesome. And I think the railroad has never been in a better position than it is now. There's no question about that. But that break room right there, that radio room that burned down was such a big loss, because it was like, man, to ride the railroad, with only 2 trains or whatever, it was really, really sad, because it's, obviously 2 trains is not enough.
Right.
You really do need 4 train ops in order to handle the amount of demand for that experience right there. And so when they finally got 4 train ops back, I immediately took to, 2-3PO Live and that Park Place to really showcase it, because I thought it was really, really important. But more than that, though, to get the full restoration of the railroad, that is pretty awesome. It took way longer than it should have. There's no question about that. I'm glad it's coming back.
Absolutely. I kind of feel your pain on that one. Not as far as Disneyland, but in Walt Disney World, when they were constructing Tron. And I remember the railroad. I think there was an issue with the track, because there was all that work and they didn't want you to see what was going on. And it was done for quite some time. So I kind of feel your pain on that one. Once that was done and over with, I was like, oh, we got our train. We got the railroad back to how it's supposed to be. And I got to double check on that now, because we got this construction over there in Magic Kingdom again. So it's like, ugh.
Well, yeah. So you had that canopy for Tron, right? And it drapes over portions of the railroad station, and they constructed a new tunnel in order to obviously shield riders from the actual Tron attraction itself. And they took their time actually to redo portions of that railroad, the ties and everything like that, in order to get it into pristine operation for when Tron finally opened. And now we're good. A couple years later, though, now we have the Rivers of America going away.
Yeah.
And that includes the railroad. And so that's why, you now have the railroad going in shuttle mode at Magic Kingdom, because it's like, look, we just endured so long, so many months without the railroad already. We don't want to necessarily go through that again. So at least they have a form of it at Magic Kingdom operating right now, but it might be until 2030, maybe even past that, before we actually get a fully circumnavigating train.
It's not a park day unless you have the train going. And it's just, it's such a part of history. And unless you're a real diehard Disney World, Disneyland fan, it doesn't bother you, I think. But if you've been visiting the parks for a few decades, it's a big part of your visit. It's the whole experience is getting on one of those trains, whether it be the one on the West Coast or the East Coast or overseas. I think they have some trains overseas in the parks. I can't even remember. I haven't visited any overseas, but you would know. You're the expert.
I would know, actually. So for Disneyland Paris, actually, they do have a circumnavigating railroad, and they actually have recreation of the Grand Canyon diorama that you actually see at Disneyland's version, which is very, very cool. And I know Eddie Sato really worked on that railroad for a while there, and he was always shouting out the people who brought the Disneyland Paris Railroad to life, and it was really, really sad when he left us, because so many of those great stories and all of that kind of went with them, which was very, very sad. But the railroad and Disneyland Paris, which is steam operated, which is very, very good, certainly exists there. Tokyo, by the way, when it opens in 1986, if I'm not mistaken there, it doesn't have a railroad that circumnavigates the park. Actually, it just goes around a portion of Frontierland and Adventureland, I do believe. And within that course, it has a recreation of what you're actually seeing on the screen right now, the Primeval World, or Primeval World version of this kind of show scene here. And now, by the way, that scene has its origins at the 1964-65 World's Fair at the Ford's Magic Skyway. You know, it was a larger attraction, but, you know, Walt loved his dinosaurs. He brought those back to Disneyland, and we've been enjoying them ever since. Mm-hmm. So it's super, super cool. And so Tokyo has that. Now, Hong Kong does have a circumnavigating railroad. However, because of strict regulations, it can't actually be steam-powered. So it's actually electric.
Huh, that's interesting.
And it has like fake noises, like fake whistles and stuff like that. It is interesting indeed. Shanghai, no railroad, and in my opinion,
Dan's Life at the Kingdom. Please. No, yeah, right when you said it, he
right, yeah, exactly. Dan's Life at the Kingdom, yeah. They have a train station, like I said, but they don't have a railroad. To me, you don't have a railroad, you don't have a castle park. That's just me. That's just how I feel about it.
Preach. That's it.
Which exactly, and this is interesting. We brought up the Primeval World. You know, that famous diorama right there. You can see actually in that B-roll shot right there, the walls that have been in that place post-fire ever since it actually occurred right there. I think that was taken maybe a couple of years ago, but you can see right there. It's just plagued us for all this time. However, those things are changing, and the Primeval World is also getting a little bit of help. From Theme Park IQ now, Disneyland has filed 2 permits for the Grand Canyon diorama and the Primeval World diorama to update lighting fixtures to LED and install new rockwork and fall protection. Permit entries: DLR Primeval World diorama, tenant improvement, new rockwork, fall protection throughout. DLR Grand Canyon diorama, tenant improvement, replace show lighting with LED fixtures, new controls and equipment to be anchored to existing pad. Now, it's interesting because that work recently started, and when you go on the Disneyland Railroad between the areas of Tomorrowland Station and Main Street Station, instead of seeing those amazing dioramas in the form of the Grand Canyon diorama and the Primeval World diorama, you see this. Not quite as grand as those things are. Yeah, you get to see sticker cutouts of the animals that you should be seeing. so
what in the world?
Yeah.
The Wildlife Express train has a better view than that one.
Yeah, I think it does actually. It's not great, but hey, you know what? Sometimes that's the cost of progress, right? You gotta put those scrims on.
Yeah.
Really, really cool. Also, too, when it comes to that Grand Canyon diorama right there, the only instance of Disney utilizing taxidermied animals for a show.
Can you say that one more time, Vash?
It's the only time that Disney ever implemented the use of taxidermied animals for a show at the Disney parks.
My
that was
goodness.
One time.
Well, I wanted to make sure I heard that properly. I was like, what?
From Walt's perspective, he wanted authentic. And then I think the story goes that, he opened one of the coolers that was home to, I think, one of the coyotes or something, and he saw a look of it. He's like, "Whoa, let's not do this again." And so that was the end of that.
He loved
There's a funny-
animals and trains and anything that had to do with this beautiful country. He really wanted to implement that in all his parks.
Oh yeah, and he looked at that, and it's kind of funny because when they were going in, when they were doing the Grand Canyon diorama, Claude Coates was in charge of a lot of the research when it came to the animals that would actually be featured there, because now you just use AI probably, but back in the day you had to go to National Geographic, you had to look these things up, you had to get the species and so forth. And so one of these things, which you're going to see just right there, these turkeys that were there, these turkey vultures. Walt's like, "Are you sure that there are turkey vultures at the Grand Canyon?" He's like, "Absolutely." And Walt later questioned him about it again, and Claude Coates was like, "You know what? Not only are there turkey vultures at the Grand Canyon, but in fact, this season there are more than ever." So he eventually got his turkey vultures. Kind of funny stuff right there. Look, I have a lot of train stories for you, so I don't mean to go on forever, but
I'm all ears on trains. I love trains. So, I mean, I feel like anyone that's a diehard fan of anything that Walt has produced understands the legend of his trains and what it means to it's the signature of the parks. Come on,
so true.
It's just there's no better way to put it, but it just makes me a little skeptical. I'm a little bit worried about the future with having the like you were mentioning before, these animatronics. They've been in the works since the 1960s, and a lot of the sightseeing that we have some fake animals even on the Jungle Cruise, and when you're on the trains at the parks, you see some fake wildlife and things like that. Those I just hope they don't replace that with like screens in the future, and because those things you have to maintain them. Let's just face it, there's a lot of maintenance behind that. They're elderly. They've been hanging out for a while there, some of them over 40 years.
You are so right. I think there will come a time when they will change out those animatronics, because obviously we know that the old mechanics and the old hydraulic fluid animatronics, those parts and so forth, those aren't manufactured anymore. You kind of have to fabricate them yourselves in a lot of ways, and you have to get outside contractors to help you out with that process. It's a big task, and there might come a time when it's just like, okay, we have to move on to newer audio animatronics technology in order to maintain them effectively going forward. I think, fortunately, we're not at that process. We're not at that point yet, I don't think. But obviously, in order to keep these things going, like a retract, for example, for a coaster, similarly, at some point you have to look at them and go, okay, now it's time to change these out. So I hope they keep those. I think they will. We'll see. Enjoy them while they are here.
Speaking of trains, Vash, and your experience at Dollywood, there was a question from Remedy. Do you recommend Dollywood for the 4th of July? I've never been to Dollywood, so I'll give it to you. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Dollywood is fantastic. It's fun, and it really, it hasn't shunned Americana. In fact, it actually has embraced it in a lot of ways. So I would fully recommend Dollywood for July 4th right there. Now, I haven't gone during that time, so you might want to get a little bit more references for people who have actually gone through that. If in fact you had to, you have any concerns with crowds or fireworks viewing and all of that. But I mean, just as a park to celebrate July 4th on, especially for the semi-quincentennial, absolutely. I mean, there is probably no other better place outside of, maybe Disneyland, but I'm biased.
There you go, Remedy. There's your answer from the expert himself of all theme parks, folks. And I think that brings us to the end of the show. I'm not trying to rush anyone off, and I'm trying to find the comments, any other comments regarding this that I might have missed that really stood out, or any questions for you, Vash. But only time will tell with the future of the parks. But I don't see anything else other than, let's see, the animatronics over at the the future of Dan's Life at the Kingdom. I mentioned animatronics at Carousel of Progress is working for how old they are. Absolutely. I'm more concerned with the newer ones. They hardly ever go down in that attraction. Very good point there.
Yeah, so that's a fantastic point. A lot of people are concerned about the implementation of like Walt, for instance. We know that Walt at the Opera House has gone down several times since its inclusion there. And so it's like, okay, well, we know we're at least getting one new animatronic in the form of Walt. Are you going to maintain and redress the existing animatronics as it relates to Carousel of Progress, or are you going to, replace them entirely? Now, for the Country Bears, they did not. They ended up maintaining those original animatronics. In fact, they actually use the parts from Splash Mountain's old animatronics in order to do that. Now, Carousel of Progress is not going to be benefiting from that per se. So I'm very curious to see whether or not they actually go ahead and upgrade all of them. And I think Dan's Life of the Kingdom has a point here. If they do that, what's the maintenance like that going to be like? Because those new animatronics, they really do have some problems.
Absolutely. There's a running joke about John's hand in that attraction, but we're not going to get into that right now.
yeah. Well, it's funny you say that actually, because there was a thread on X actually that talked about how the new animatronics, like their wrists fail a lot of times.
And
it's really, really interesting.
How do they leak? I have no idea. I'm not sure how that works. I am not the expert when it comes to that at all by any means. But there was one reel that I saw that they were like zooming in on one of those audio animatronics, and it was leaking. I'm like, how is it leaking? What is that? Can't be oil. Like, I don't know how that works.
Well, usually, if an animatronic is leaking, usually that's hydraulic fluid.
Okay.
And it's kind of funny because one of the times, so the Lincoln animatronic that was, showcased at the 1964-65 World's Fair. You'll remember if you looked at the last Fashion Vixen there, Robert Moses was very enthralled by it. He's like, we got to have Lincoln at the World's Fair. Got funding from the state of Illinois in order to, erect that pavilion and get Lincoln installed there. Well, the Imagineers had a super hard time getting that right. They were just constantly toying with it, tinkering with it, trying to get it to be as reliable as possible, the whole thing, right? And hydraulic fluid back in that time was red. And so one of the times that they were getting Lincoln dialed in, they were showcasing it maybe to the press at this point. And one of the hydraulic lines bursts in his chest, and with red hydraulic fluid, it goes down his shirt. It looks like he had been
dying.
It looked like he had been shot there. And the media was horrified. Walt was not happy about it at all. And it was like, wow, you guys really wanted to reproduce a famous moment in Lincoln's life. Well, you did a good job there. So not fantastic, not great. And from that moment going forward, all of the hydraulic fluid that Disney would acquire for its animatronics would be clear in order to avoid a similar incident. So
amazing.
There you go.
You would know all the history behind that, Vash. Kudos to you.
I know. I try.
We learned from the best. 102 of you guys watching out there. Thank you so much for joining tonight on Vash Sky ParkCast.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for doing that right there. Let's go ahead and get some music going while we talk about what's coming up on ahead right there. By the way, I haven't showcased this in a little bit long. Let me go ahead and get this going right here. If you want to go ahead and follow MagicalyMJ, go ahead and go over to her X account at MagicalyMJ. Her Instagram link is there, and in the description you'll find not just her X, but also her YouTube channel. So please go ahead and support those who support this channel. Our producer extraordinaire, thank you so much, MJ, for coming on and being a part of today's program. You want more Vash Sky ParkCast? We got a show. Well, it's meant for you in the form of Vash and Vixen on Saturdays at 3 p.m. Eastern. It's one of my favorite programs of the week right there. We get to go over history. We get to go over some really cool lore and all of that. It is awesome. I love it, but it's restricted to members or Sky Watchers of this channel right here. So if you haven't become a member yet, what are you waiting for? Go ahead, tap in, and you'll get what I think we're now up to like well over 10 hours of content. And we're just building up the repository every single week. It's really, really cool.
Oh, don't forget the pet of the week.
Oh, pet of the week as well right there. If you want to go ahead and submit your pet of the week for Vash and Vixen, you can do so at vixensky007@gmail.com. It's a good reminder right there, MJ. Very much appreciate that. Also, too, we're going to be back on for everybody on Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern following That Park Place. And I believe next week, if you guys like the theme parking program that we have with Jared, O255, and myself, Jared from Capture Magic, that is, that might be moving from Wednesday to Tuesday for a little while. We're going to experiment, and we're going to try to see, what you guys actually would like from that show. So please go ahead and join us on that one. All right, let's go ahead. Get out of here, MJ. I very much appreciate you, and I appreciate all of you who have watched us for the entire length of this program. Thank you so much, Going Shogi. Thank you, Fixing the Sky, All the Bradley's Fun, Dance Life for the Kingdom, Remy D, Going Shogi, O2RR, let's see, Candid Camper. Oh, hey, nice to see you in there. Thank you so much for joining us right there. Rogue Attraction, let's see, Freedom Seeker. Awesome stuff. I love all of that and so much more. All right, MJ. Let's go ahead and get out of here.
Have a great night, everybody.
You. Thank you. And remember, folks, Skyliners, Sky Watchers, the sky is the limit.